Hey everybody, I am here with Felix, better known as Fixel Online. How you doing?
Doing great, thank you. How's everything?
Excellent. Thank you for doing this. I can't wait to pick your brain about all of the very awesome things that you've been working on. But I guess to give you a basic introduction, a while back you released an optical drive emulator for the 3DO that was very unique in that there are two versions. One that you could do internally, so if you have a dead CD-ROM drive, that's perfect. But you also made it so that you could have it externally through the expansion port and back, making it 100% plug and play. So both of those things were pretty impressive on their own, but then you had a whole other list of stuff coming out that we'll talk about. But so I guess what got you started? Was that one of the first retro gaming things that you designed, or was there a history that I completely missed?
Well, it looks like you missed the history. Back in 2000s, I reverse engineered the actual 3DO console and did the first ever emulator for it. If you remember, everything before
Oh,
that was
that's
vaporware,
right.
so the FreeDO was the first one that was real.
That is right. I remember writing about that in my post now, but I've been spending so much time talking to you about ODEs that I had forgotten. You're right. You were the FreeDO emulator. So how did you reverse engineer it back then? Where did you find schematics? Did you just probe the chips? I mean, it's not an easy thing to do.
Okay, so there were actually multiple approaches, but there were no schematics back then. At least we couldn't find them, or there was no. I sent requests to service centers to Panasonic, and all I got is just it's long gone, forgotten, goodbye. Um, so the first thing was Trush Alexander from Russia. He dumped the ROM. He dumped the actual ROM chip from FZ10. That got me looking at it because I was heavily into reverse engineering for other purposes, basically my main job. And I looked into the actual dump, seen what's going on, and started to reverse engineer what requires for this software to run, basically. Patents were huge help, and I need to shout to RJ Michael and rest in peace Dale and everybody else for actually documenting it. That was a huge help, understanding how the console works and everything. And then we managed to get our hands onto the actual SDK, and we dumped it. And the one that you have online right now, that was actually courtesy of Alan Wright, who was actually part of our team. He managed to find one like accidentally on eBay and got it. So that was huge help, having the actual SDK. So that started, that progressed everything else. I did decap and delayer Madam and Clio in time. That helped into some uncertainties, namely with
How did you do
timings.
the decapping process? Did you send that out to a place to have it done, or did you use the chemical method and do it yourself?
No, I did send it to the place to do it, to the lab, because while I'm okay with chemistry, I do not like to work with it. I mean, it's quite dangerous stuff sometimes, and especially for removing the passivation glass on the top layer, that can eat your bones even without you feeling it. So that HEF, the hydrofluoric acid, it just nuts. I will not do it myself. And yeah, send it to lab. They imaged it. I got it back then. It was like 2001, early 2001 when I got it. Again, keep in mind, it's all standard logic cells, so you cannot identify the blocks. You need to look at it, and you need to actually start to disassemble it, say cell by cell. Actually, looking like this bunch of gates looks like and this look like not, this look like a flip flop and everything. So today, and I've seen that there's a very interesting research paper about using the AI, or rather the neural nets, to identify the logic elements and draw the schematic from that. I wish we had it back then, but everything was mostly manual. Yes.
Wow. With AI, you would still have to manually verify everything yourself. You couldn't just rely on AI to do it and then load up the chip, right?
Actually, let's put it this way. Yeah, it's a very loud term, and then now I'm going to get a lot of weird eyes and weird looks for downplaying it. But keep in mind, when I'm saying AI, I actually mean neural net, trained neural net, and that gets close to 99% accuracy on image recognition, and especially on the simple patterns like what you get with the standard logic cells in ICs. It downright all you're going to get is find the matching cell and potentially rotate it 90 or to 70 degrees. That's it. So it's very, very precise. It's unbelievably precise. So all you need to feed it is like all layers sometimes, because you sometimes you have a interconnect on a passivation, sorry, on a metal layer. Sometimes you have it in a polysilicon layer. But once you feed everything in and you have a decently trained neural net on that particular technology, which was, by the way, AT&T back then. They moved to Panasonic later on. They moved into like 94 to Panasonic. All 93 chips is AT&T, very old chips. So if you train that AI on that logic, it will recognize it. There's no even doubt about this.
That is awesome. Well, that certainly explains why you were able to get all of the knowledge necessary to have an external version of the 3DO ODE, because you already knew quite a bit about the entire architecture of it, not just the CD-ROM and the optical drive emulation part.
Correct.
Are you still working on FreeDO?
Oh yeah, I have
Because it's
interesting
pretty
stuff
current.
coming in.
Oh, that's nice. Awesome. I remember using it right when I started RetroRGB, and it was one of the reasons why I wanted to get a 3DO, because I was able to use the emulation and actually give the games a try for real. And it's it's such a gateway drug, I guess is the best way to put it, because a lot of people, emulation is all they need. And it's a lot of other people, it's an incredible development tool. But I think for a lot of just fans of games, you get to start playing the stuff and you think, this is awesome, but I wonder what it would be like on the original console. And then, so yeah, I think you've caused quite a lot of people to buy 3DOs with that emulator.
Yeah, I wish I wish the platform wouldn't be dead as it is now. But as I say, the platform actually it enabled a lot of technologies and actually pushed a lot of new game developments, like those FMV games. They came basically to the 3DO. That was one of the main reason for that. CDI caught up to this as well, and but obviously now the history, PlayStation and everything else. But yeah, 3DO had very decent stuff going on for it. It's I think it would have been a great platform today, and probably the history would have looked different if it wasn't sold to Panasonic. But yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because the cost was the biggest thing, definitely. Because I remember as a kid seeing some of the games and hearing the hype and wanting one so badly until I saw the price. And then I was just like, I could buy a lot of Genesis and Super Nintendo games for that. I think I'm gonna, so I knew I knew where I wanted to stay. But it's
Well,
the theory
hint,
behind it.
hint.
Oh,
And there is everything that is going to connect to here. So yeah, there's that going on
that is
behind the scenes.
interesting.
Yep.
Wow. There were games that were dumped for that, and when I say released to online to people just as an archival thing. So that might actually be something that we might be able to try at some point.
Absolutely, you can actually try the Polystars on FZ35 already. I ported it to FZ35. I'm actually working to port more of those arcade games to FZ35 and FZ21. I do have FZ21 as well to try it as well as multiple actually 35s.
Wow.
But yes, it's definitely coming, and that's going to be a neat idea to see the reaction of people, like once they will see the console that actually is right now. We're just basically releasing the stuff for the console that never was released officially.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm here to talk about your work, but I got to ask: have you considered porting working on an FPGA core for the 3DO? Because you've already done so much of the reverse engineering.
Okay, so I honestly don't have much time to work on it, but I have two people who I'm coaching and guiding who are actually working on the FPGA core.
Hmm.
Um, I must say that's not going to be on Mister. That's not possible to do on Mister because of several ways the console is implemented internally. Namely, the video RAM that console uses is very unique. Is that it has a fast page copy and fast page fill that's going to be impossible to implement on anything modern standard right now. Like for example, take Mister, right? You need external SD-RAM. DDR3 is not going to help you. You need external SD-RAM like usual, but you need it at 32-bit width, so you need two chips. Uh, that's going to give you the actual frame buffer proper, but will not leave just enough time to actually implement the entire system RAM. So your system RAM is going to live somewhere else, and unfortunately, the Mister FPGA does not have enough of that to implement internally. So that's going to be probably on a different platform. I think one of them is targeting one of the other Terasic boards, so that's going to be easy to obtain. And yeah, that's it's in works. I would say it's in works. I'm helping everyone, and again, if anyone wishes to reach out to me, I'm on Discord, I'm on emails, I'm everywhere. So if they need help with anything, and again, I have a very strong FPGA background myself. For my main job, I'm doing silicon development and I'm doing the embedded development. So if anybody wishes to reach out and for my help in doing that core, absolutely. As I say, there are two people who are working independently. They didn't want to work as a team. They want to work each one on its own hardware, each one on its own implementation. But I'm helping both of them, and some of them are showing good results already.
That's awesome. So that limitation for the video RAM, that's not something that could be solved using dual RAM on the DE10. That's something that's part of the DE10's architecture that's going to be limiting that, correct?
Um, okay, so you need 1 megabyte of video RAM and you need 2 megabytes of system RAM. The core the core FPGA does not have enough block memory to implement that. To implement even the video RAM. So the video RAM is going to be external, and the system is going to be external. The video RAM requires 50 megahertz 32-bit access, um, constant. Like when I'm saying constant, there's not a single moment where it's not being accessed, because you always draw the pixels. There is always pipeline for the cell, for the projector, for the VDLP. So always being arbitrated inside and used, and the system RAM is on top of that as well. If you're using both chips, both SDRAM chips, you're getting your 32-bit access at about 160 megahertz. But
Hmm.
between all of that, you also need to take care of something important that the video RAM has, which is the fast page copy and fast page fill, which requires you technically read the entire page of the video memory, fill it with something, with the value, and write it back to the SDRAM. So that means already 50 megahertz times 2. Okay, and you do that at 16 cycles, which is impossible to do in normal modern SDRAM. So it's very specific feature of that old video RAM. We were trying. I was actually looking for the source. There are sources. There are, like Chinese resellers, or cheap resellers. They do have sources of old stock of those or pools, which is possible to do. But I don't know how sustainable is that source. If we are technically going to solder anything to the D10 Nano, that would have been that video RAM then, and only then it's possible to do a Mister. But again, That's non-sustainable. It requires level shifters because it's a 5-volt RAM and it will not work normally on 3-volt levels. So it will require level shifters for FPGA. It will require basically, committing into that particular hardware just to implement the 3DO. So as I said, um, there is a progress. I don't know where it will lead, and I will absolutely push it to be open source, like everything for I did so far for 3DO. But I do not know, when or how, in what form it's going to take.
Gotcha. So maybe this sounds like a good project for Mistex. I'm not sure if you heard about that, but there's a developer that was looking to spread Mister out on multiple pieces of hardware while still embracing Mister for everything it is. So not really a fork, but an evolution, I guess, is probably a better way to visualize it. So I know Hans was looking into many different boards, and he wanted to settle on a lower cost board and then a much more expensive, if you want to drop a lot of money and have some fun, cool, but you don't have to type of thing. So maybe the boards that he figures out, the higher end one, could handle all of that. That would be pretty neat.
Yes, and I definitely think that's going to be a very good idea. Yes, absolutely. I mean, if I've heard about the project, I didn't have the chance to even to reach out or talk to him yet. But as I said, I'm available. Anyone who wants to approach, I'm approachable.
Awesome. Yeah, it's that's cool. I gotta maybe put you two in touch because it's even if you're not thinking of it as, how do I get the 3DO on here, but think of it as, hey, what other things could fall into this category of needing more, what other development platforms are out there that would be able to handle it? Because we're always, as nerds, we're always looking to the future, right? We're very happy with what we have now for about 5 seconds, and then we're always thinking about what else we could do. So it's yeah, that's neat. That's cool. Well, that's that's good news for the future then, because the I love software emulation. I mean, it's what kept me in the scene for so long. But the FPGA implementations are just so easy to have that little box that you plug in, and that's it. That's your game console. And I know the Raspberry Pi PCs, you could do all that stuff, but it's still not quite the same. Maybe it will be someday. Maybe we'll get some better front ends that can have you interface to the software cores a little bit easier. But I don't know. I'm excited for all of this stuff. So it's good to hear it's in the works.
Yep.
So you're, I guess let's move on to the HDMI stuff, which got delayed because of a manufacturing issue. And man, that was like a dagger to the heart for me because I've been there before, where in both retro and in companies that I worked for, where you have an entire run of production ruined, and it's not your fault. Your original QA samples are good, everything's fine, and somebody pulled a switcheroo on you. And yeah, so what's the status of that? And could you talk a little bit about that project? I guess.
Yes. So the status of that is right now I'm waiting for the shipments. It was just sent out of all of the boards that I ordered. The yield, unfortunately, is very low. So I ordered way more boards than there are orders. And this way I will combat the yield, obviously at somewhat loss for me. But again, I treat this project as a hobby more than anything else. So that's I'm okay with losses as long as I will make people happy with this board is going to be excellent. So the, there were a couple of hurdles. So the first hurdle was that the FPGA I've relied on suddenly became unobtainium. And initially it was Lattice CCP 45F. I had an order with Lattice, and that was supposed to be shipped to me in December, early December. Actually, it was like December 2nd. It was supposed to be shipped to me, and December 1st, I'm getting a very interesting email saying that we're sorry, but your order has been allocated to another customer. So when I reached out to my sales manager and account manager and started to wreak havoc, um, they say that there was a higher priority automotive customer that came in and sniffed the entire batch, the entire production batch, which didn't play well for me. So I had to redesign quickly. I had to redesign the entire board around another FPGA.
That's awful.
Luckily, yeah, it is awful, but as I said, it's not the end of the world. I redesigned the board quickly around another FPGA that was available, and I actually purchased it just to make sure that I have a stock. And I purchased like it comes in trays, so I purchased the entire stock that they had, whatever the DGK had in stock. I just bought it, knowing that I will reuse this probably into some other devices and everything else. So I was like, let me just keep it. So I got the FPGA. I've ordered the boards. The boards came in. I've played with them. Basically, again, it's a first order board, so I verified that everything is okay. I verified that there was necessary, the typical one board wire and the prototype
Mhm.
that I definitely don't want to ship. So I reordered it. But because this was the prototype run, I reordered from another vendor. So I will not name the vendor. We all advertise two of them. Pretty much every YouTuber advertises two of them, one or another. So one of those vendors I ordered, and I did specify that it's a high precision board, namely that the holes in the VS must be exact. There's very little tolerances. Um, I got the boards 3 weeks later, and the boards just didn't work. Like if I'm just probing, 2 points, like there's a trace going on from the pad on the BGA to the pad on the FPGA to the pad on the video encoder, open trace. And if you look at the VS under microscope, I can probably show the pictures later on for you. You'll see it. It's the VS supposed to be on the right side and V in the hole in the middle. No, the hole is right here. The hole is right here. The hole is right here. The V is here. The hole is here. So I don't know how it's passed their inspection, but here I am 3 weeks later, no boards. I ordered from another vendor. Obviously, the moment I've seen that problem happening, the other vendor replied to me 2 weeks later saying that, oh, we had to scrap your boards and produce a new order. There was mistaken production. So 3 weeks for fast forward, and we're already in way past February. 3 weeks fast forward. The other vendor sends me the boards. I'm looking at the boards, and the mask, the solder mask on the top layer is mirrored. Basically, you're looking at the pads, they are covered with the solder mask, and there are gaps on the other side. So when I send them the email saying like what's going on. So, oh, sorry, we shipped you the wrong boards. This is the scrap boards that we initially messed up with, and we ship you the wrong
Oh,
ones. So okay, fine. So send me the new boards. Another week goes by, no boards in the mail. I'm reaching out to them. I was like, oh, sorry, we had production issues. We ordered the new one. At which point I was like, okay, you know what? I wasn't willing to wait for them anymore. I ordered the local ones from a local vendor from the one in Texas. Um, Again, no naming names because I don't want to, I don't want to cause them any problems and everything else. They're utterly expensive, but the boards got here. The boards are okay. I went to because obviously the boards are too. I mean, I can solder a few of the BGAs in here, and here's, for example, one of the examples that I soldered myself. You can recognize the board probably. This is BGA, and I soldered it, basically here at home lab myself. Everything is working on this board, which is fine. But for production, I'm not going to sit and solder here hundreds of boards. I send them out to
yeah.
production. I got the first 10 samples. Out of 10 samples, one works.
What's the issue? Is it just too? Are these boards just more advanced than these companies are used to making, or
Okay,
are they just so many orders that they're dropping the ball on all of them?
I think both. First of all, the boards are thin. The boards are half the thickness, so they will be, easier to put in and everything. Because if I'll show you the prototype, here's the prototype board.
Okay.
Here's the prototype board for the video. This is the prototype board. If you can see the thickness, this
Yeah.
is like this is 12 layers. I didn't skip on anything here. So see, this is
It's a
12 layers
12
board,
layer
and
board.
yes, I obviously don't want to ship those and everything, but this is the prototype I was working with, right? So this is where I'm improving everything, all the video signals and everything else. There is so this board is fully working. Now, when I scale it down, this is right now to 4 layers, but it's very thin board. It's a half the standard thickness. Um, in that this requires pretty much laser drilled vias for the on the manufacturer side. I don't think those other two Asian vendors are too reliable in that. Although they claim they get supported, they didn't find any problems during the DFM process. They didn't find any issues. They didn't say that it's impossible to do. It's all within their spec. I don't know where they drop the balls. Probably too much of a YouTube publicity created. They probably have hundreds of much easier boards to work on than this. So maybe.
Mm.
This time with the manufacturing, I know the issue, and there's not much I can do about this. When I ordered the FPGAs, they came in trays. But when I sent those trays, I didn't unpack them or anything. When I sent those trays to the manufacturer, the MSL, the moisture sensor sticker,
Mhm.
was triggered in those. So somewhere between the manufacturer of the board components and the vendor, my CM, there was a compromise. Something was compromised. I'm not sure if it was. I'm not sure if it was here, but I'm handling the components. I'm handling $7,000 worth of like FPGA itself. I have them here. Very expensive FPGAs. I never had those problems. So I
Mm.
don't know. Maybe it was compromised before it reached DGK. Maybe between DGK and myself. Maybe between myself and the CM. But what actually happened is the CM did not bake them according to the manufacturer's spec, which caused them issues like voids under the BGA. So those balls probably trap moisture, and the moisture explodes when you run through the oven. I did verify that they actually baked them before, but maybe during the bake process the moisture exploded, something like this. So that's something to deal with later on. For now, I'm just going to eat the yield. Um, it's roughly right now it's standing about 35%, which is very low yield. Yeah, so about 2/3 of the boards are going to be scrapped. I know that, but
Ugh.
that's something I'm willing to do just because I got my delays already too much. I'm not going to wait for it anymore. So
I appreciate you taking the time to explain that, both to keep people updated as to your project, but also so people could understand a little bit more about exactly what's happening when you hear things about delays. And yes, of course, sometimes companies just don't know what the heck they're doing, and they never release the product and whatever. We've all seen that too, but
yeah,
there are tons of good companies that always end up having some kind of delays, and I probably don't do a good enough job explaining it. You just did. You just gave a lot of really great detail, but I want people to hear what you got to go through to do some of this stuff, because it's rough, and it every time you turn around, there's a problem, and if you're not a company big enough to make a difference, there's nothing you could do. And one of the things that at least we had when we were making medical grade computers is we were just big enough to have net 30 terms, which means you place your order, the product ships, and then you pay the invoice after. So we had that luxury of, hey, it's in our contract. If these things don't work, you're not getting a penny, including the cost of the parts that you fronted for us. So try suing us. And that was the only reason why we ended up getting, not total bankruptcy the first couple of times that stuff like that happened, because there was multiple times we had lost $100,000 worth of stuff that had nothing to do with us. And luckily, you know, we had all the paperwork in place to make sure that we didn't have to pay for it. But you don't get that if you're an indie dev doing products in low runs. You know, we barely got that doing runs of 5 and 10,000, you know, for stuff that could have led to a lot more.
Well, yeah, I totally agree. The net terms helps definitely, and I do have them pretty much with every vendor. My main problem is that a lot of big names like Mauser, DigiKey, and everything else, they shielded themselves from this at this point. So they are not held responsible for this any longer.
Yeah.
Ever since the COVID started, and by the way, this is something that I just literally got eaten by. I was working on one board, and what actually happened is that the scope probe slipped, and I shorted the chip, blew up. Happens, that's happening. So I said, okay, fine, no problem. Let me order it from DigiKey, because I know it was like 3 o'clock, 3 afternoon. I order overnight early AM. It's going to be here in the morning, so I can actually work on this before I have our call. So sure thing, I'm placing an order, DigiKey and everything else. I'm going to bed. No, and later on in the evening, saying like, okay, now let me browse through my emails, and I don't see shipping notification, which starts to alarm me, because I do need to finish that today. Actually, I have later on, I have a meeting with one of my clients exactly about this board. And yeah, I don't have any shipping notification. So obviously, with a heavy heart, I went to bed. And in the morning, I see that, yeah, sure, we will shipping it out early tomorrow, Wednesday. So yeah. So I reach out to the representative, and they say, oh, you know what? We no longer guarantee same-day shipping. Say, since when this happened? Well, don't quote me, but you know
Yeah.
what. Right.
Yeah.
So everything changed in 2019, and they all are shielded against this. So I cannot not pay those invoices, and I absolutely paid all of this, including all of those FPGAs I got and all of the components I got. And there's no way for me to not pay it. But yes, I totally agree with you. I mean, as far as taxing it can be, I'm sure you remember even my problem with export enclosures and cables. So, which is, if you want to pause later on and cut here, I can bring you the enclosure if you want me to show it.
No, I have it right here, actually. The one that you sent, the
No,
newer
the
one.
old ones, the bad ones, the ones that they sent me, which are all warped and everything.
Oh, geez. Now I'll put pictures in the description for people that
Okay,
want to
you
see
can put the
that.
picture. Yeah, so sounds
That's
good. Yeah,
horrible. Ugh.
yeah,
But
and
yeah,
the
I mean, it's
cables. Yeah, the cables. I
they're
did
right
send
behind
you.
you. I can
No,
see them.
right. Those are the cables. Hold on. Those are the old cables. Hold on. Let me grab a new ones as well, so you'll have them. Oh, anyways, you all remember this disaster.
I mean, it worked. You know,
It
that was
worked.
one of
I
those
know
things
it did
where,
work. And by the way, this is the old enclosure, and you can see even it started to warp out in here. You can actually see the white stuff in here. So it started to warp. At least it's not as bad as the new as the ones that I had to throw away. But here's the glory new cable.
nice. Nice.
So
Yeah,
this
that
is new
looks pro.
cable, and as I say, I was sending it out to anyone who needs them, who wants them, free of charge, as usual. So those are, is the whole glorified cable.
Yeah, that looks great.
Yep. Use the gold plated contacts this time, and the only problem is I could not source. There is no way for me to source that the cable in black, because it's only available under custom order, and the minimal order is 5 kilometers.
Yeah, it's no, you're fine. That's
Yeah.
fine. People could spray paint it if it really bothers them that bad.
Yes. See? They come in the bags like this, 10 pieces each.
Nice. So
Yeah.
the HDMI mod itself. Now you've started to work
Yeah.
on flex cables so that you could install them in multiple different consoles. And I'm just to clarify, I'm not saying that you install the flex cable in multiple consoles and have one board that you switch between them. It's still an internal installation, but having different flex cables allows different motherboards to be able to have the same board, and then you would just flash different firmware on it. I'm assuming, right?
You can just select whatever the board is, whatever the console you do from the menu, because it does have a Wi-Fi built-in, and
Hmm.
you configure it just from the menu. I will obviously release like more of updated images after, if somebody will find any problems or anything else like this. There's going to be a software update available, but currently every single board includes all the images for all of them. And
Awesome.
yeah, so as I announced, like as a somewhat compensation for the longer waiting time, I'm releasing all of those. Every single order will get all the flex ribbons. So even if you didn't plan to use it on some console, you may be able to use it. And I do
Mhm.
have more consoles coming. I will just announce them shortly. Maybe at the moment I will be shipping them, because that will be included in the manual.
That's awesome. So, what are the
So there.
launch day features? So, obviously, it's HDMI output, and I believe it was 720p output for launch day, right?
It is 480p. It's 720p. It is 240p, obviously, which is allowing you just the vanilla pass through for unprocessing whatever it is. If you want to use your own DAC, and there is a potentially 180p and 4K. And the 180p, I'm actually looking. It looks very promising to actually have it by the launch day, by shipping day in a couple of weeks.
Oh wow! And you mentioned 4K. Is that going to require different hardware?
No,
Wow,
no.
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
Huh?
same HDMI encoder supports 4K and 4K 60. Obviously, there's not going to be 4K 60 on any of those consoles. They're mostly 30 FPS. But yeah, it's the the HDMI chip supports 4K 60. The FPGA is way capable of it. I can do clock pixel pixel clock rate up to 300 megahertz, no problem. And as I was probably, yeah, I was explaining this to the SAG, to the Stone Age gamers when we talk to them. But I'm not using any of those vendor IPs for the video processing. The video processor and scaler is my own entirely. That allows me to jump between the FPGAs without even without second thought. So I like now that a lot of people are struggling right now with lack of Intel FPGAs, because they relied on the IP that Intel provides for free
Hmm.
in the quarters for the video processing. And I will not throw the names, but everybody knows them. And some relying on Xilinx. But as I said, I'm using my own core IP for video processor, my own scaler, integer scaler I have, and I have very good Bayesian filter for very smooth upscaling if needed. And
Hmm.
yeah, that works very well. Actually, I've tested. It's FPGA proven, and it's actually ASIC proven as well. I have an ASIC that has it built in, so it works. It works wonders. When I'm saying
Wow,
works
that's
wonders,
excellent.
it's like it just streams without any issues.
That's really awesome. So, I mean, to be honest, just basic HDMI out is so important because right now it might not sound it. Like, let's just say hypothetically, you said the boards could only do 480p, which you obviously didn't, but let's just say that was the case. I would still say that these were very important to use because right now you could install it, plug it into your flat panel. It's going to work. Some scale 480p better than others, but more importantly, having that original 240p output also means that not only can you run it on analog through your DACs, but any future scalers that come out, now you have a true digital to digital, one-to-one recreation of the original signal. So 20 years from now, when we have 16K scalars, you don't have to worry about, oh, is this outdated? Who cares? You still have the original signal. It could be manipulated any way you want. So that alone is super important. But the fact that you could go up to higher resolutions and support modern displays is an awesome potential. So yeah, it's really exciting. And at the moment, what you've announced already is support for 3DO and Neo Geo. And was there any others that you announced already? I know that we had
I
talked
didn't
about some, but
announce, but you'll see. I didn't announce, but you'll get them in the documentation. You'll understand quickly.
Cool. All right, I'll leave that for
I
us a
will I
surprise.
will send you documentation before I'm shipping them, so you'll have it before. But yes,
Awesome.
total it's total 9 different consoles at this point that I have support.
Wow, very cool. So moving on to your optical drive emulators, you've now released a bunch of them that you're about to release a bunch that you've announced, you've taken pre-orders on. Was it like a snowball effect where were you able to design one and then you just be able to use what you've learned to port that to so many different consoles? Or is this something you've been working on forever? Because in a very relatively short period of time, you've accomplished what a lot of people have been trying to do for years.
Well, here's the thing. That the ODE technically started a long time ago. I didn't. This is not my first venture into ODE. I did develop a very interesting device back in 2003 that was actually a CD-ROM and DVD-ROM emulator for PC. And back then, there was no SATA. There was actually standard IDE parallel ATA interface. What it did, it emulated it at the laser point, at the laser level. Basically, it emulated the entire controller, it
Mhm.
emulated the entire DSP, and down to the laser pickup. So I could load up that PIT image from the dot tape. I actually, well, not that, it was DDS. It was DDS tapes that I used. I could load up the master image into the device, and it will emulate the laser movements, it will emulate the focus issue, it will emulate the wobble, it will emulate the lead in, lead out, it will emulate pretty much everything. So that was my first OD. And after doing the same thing, well, actually after doing a much simpler way for the 3DO, I stumbled upon a very interesting need. The need was to revive the PSX. If
Mm.
you remember the PS2 DVR,
Yeah.
somebody
So
reached
wait,
out to
just
me
if
saying like,
anybody, just let me interrupt for one moment. If anybody
yeah,
doesn't know what the PSX is, very often, especially in the US, you'll hear the PlayStation 1 referred to as the PSX, but that's not what we're talking about. There was a PlayStation 2 released in Japan only that also had an over-the-air tuner DVR built in. And while it doesn't really add much for, yeah, there you go right here. Well, it doesn't add too much for your PlayStation 2. It's a very neat piece of equipment. You could still use it in the States and everything like that. So when we say PSX, that's what we're talking about. I didn't want to. Sorry to interrupt. I just didn't want to confuse anybody listening.
no, totally clear. Yes, I remember term PSX from very very early emulation days. They were they call it PSX actually probably from the fact that the executable were actually a exe file, although it wasn't you know the standard MS-DOS or Windows exe. It was actually that. So if I'm not mistaken, the first attempt at PS1 emulation was PS1 executable, which were
Mm.
supposed to be grabbing those executable files and run them in. That's probably where it came from. But I digress. That was actually the need for that to revive that PSX, PS2 DVR. And after sniffing it with the logic analyzer and everything, I realized it's a standard ID protocol, and I've seen a very good potential for it. I've seen that a lot of, and I actually remembered a lot of those retro computers like 386 or 486, like early PS2 models, they do not support anything modern on IDE. Like you cannot just simply take the compact flash card and plug it into adapter and make it work. It will not understand some of the obscurities that used to be back then. So that
Mhm.
actually came and resulted into this, which is, you're probably familiar, is universal IDE emulator. Basically, it emulates at 44 pins or 40 pin IDE with the analog output for the 4 pin analog output for the CD-ROM, and it basically emulates any device you have on IDE. It could be LS120, it could be zip drive, it could be a magneto-optical 230 meg, 640 meg, 1.3 gig, whatever you name. DVD with recording capabilities, emulates CD with recording capabilities. So you can actually burn the disk on it. It will create an image, but you can burn the disk on it, and like some old 90s Miro burning ROM application, and it will not tell any difference between normal CD-ROM and this. So once I implemented that, um, and a lot of my knowledge from back day working on the ID bus helped here. So I realized that this could be a very interesting platform for any future devices. And I started to look at the consoles that have lasers dying, but there's no solution for that. So I acquired them, and obviously, just to make sure that I can test everything and see where the issue is and everything else, I did acquire pretty much every single console that I need, that I want to develop for, and it's obscure enough and have a very very niche following, and so-called underdog, right? So I got them all and started to look what I can do. And obviously that came up into some quick development. Let's say for Marty, the DeLorean, the MC88,
Loved it.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, I got it working in like 7 hours after I got the Marty here. So
That's
I had one
awesome.
of this wired up, and actually initially I started with FZ1 board wire up to it, because FZ1 has universal level shifters, and that
Hmm.
was my proto board for it. And actually I got it running like within 7 hours. I had already game booting up, and many would say, "Oh yeah, Doc Brown has it and everything else." I say, "Yep, fine. Let them have Doc Brown." And I've seen the problems you have with this. You need to supply serial numbers and everything else. I said, I don't see the need for it. So I went ahead and I did the DeLorean, the MC88. I did throw up I did throw in floppy disk and emulator to this as well, because why not? I mean, FPGA cable I have plenty. It's using so little of FPGA for to emulating it. I have plenty of available spaces in that, and that's actually what allows me to move quickly from platform to platform, is that I have a complete FPGA for me available in this platform, so I can emulate it first of all everything with precise timing,
Mhm.
and not bother about software aspect of it, because it's everything is in hardware, right? So and it's given me very good evaluation or like experimentation platform. So I basically like keep on wire up like a bunch of wires with logic analyzer and the board in there, and it gives me the idea. Sorry, it gives me the ODE emulation pretty much like a few hours later. So that's the idea. So my main problem right now is catching up with the software for those, and not embedded software, the menus. Because
Oh,
right, so like with the 3DO, I want to keep era, age, and look and feel appropriate menus for them. Like I don't want to put like like a typical two-panel interface in Marty and call it a day. No, I want something that is Marty appropriate, right? And probably we'll have some music to it as well. I will ask my daughter to compose.
that's awesome. Yeah,
Shout
that's
out, hi.
your daughter was the one who did the music for the 3DO emulator, which is awesome. So I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to more songs.
yeah. So she likes those games on Marty and PCFX. So I'm sitting here helping her, like, playing with this, because some of them are Japanese and everything else. And yeah, so she got very interested in those, so she is going to be composing music for that as well. I will make sure that it's tunable, turnable on and off. And actually, the next release for 3DO as well, you can turn it off. Again, I didn't think about turning it off, but yeah, people requested, I will. But yes, they each will include some music to them, and as well as some hidden Easter eggs. I'm sure you've probably
Awesome.
seen some in the 3DO already.
Yeah, that's really great. So all of these have either they have the option to add a Wi-Fi chip to them. Are they coming with the Wi-Fi chip on there?
Um, No, and this is the decision that I had to face, and I will explain you why. So, Wi-Fi chip. There are two ways of approaching it. It's first of all, I can do just a standard Wi-Fi controller, like RTL or something, and interface it to the microcontroller. That requires a full stack, full Wi-Fi stack on the microcontroller, and it will consume obviously the resources and everything else. The second option is throw in something like ESP32. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now with ESP32, and I have developed a lot of applications for it, and have wide portfolio for this. So I've been using those before. So, but with the ESP32 comes something else. It's module selection. Now, some people will not ever need this, and I know a lot of people who will not ever need this. Some people will heavily use it. So I sort of pulled the decision to create a separate board for it that will run on its own and will provide services to the ODE. I don't want to. I don't want to create a confusion or create a complicated embedded project on the ODE itself. I would say let ODE do what it's done the best. So the ODE will emulate the CD-ROM the best, right? It will emulate, it will provide the interfaces for the menus, it will provide everything else. That's going to be its job. The Wi-Fi chip, it's going to mount through the AFP and Samba. So basically, any Windows shares, any Macintosh shares, it does have a zero conf. It does have a Bluetooth low energy with the credential sharing, so you'll be able to share and configure it from your phone without even installing any applications. So basically, you bring the phone close to it, it will see that there's a Wi-Fi in search for the credentials, and you'll share the credentials, your local network credentials with it. You don't even need to type it; your phone will share it, and it will report back to you its IP, or it will actually be on the MDNS. Basically, it will report itself as a host on MDNS, and you'll be able to just type its name. So, for example, for PCFX, you just type PCFX. For the ID, you just type ID /
Mm-hmm.
and it will pop up the web interface for it. And as I said, that's my target. I want it to be as simple as possible. So it's plug and play configuration for everything. I don't want people to mess up with it. I don't want to create complicated, very complicated user experience. I don't know if my 3D ODs are anything to go by. I think I achieved that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes sense too, because you also don't want to add cost for people that aren't going to use it. So if somebody has RetroNAS set up and they have multiple of these consoles and they're going to buy multiple ODEs, yeah, they're definitely going to want Wi-Fi. But what about that person that just wants to take their, to rip their CDI collection and then put that on your ODE and that's it? And they don't really need anything else. Why would they want to spend more? So it makes total sense to have that as a separate thing. But will that be available on launch day as well, so people could purchase both? Or
Right now, I'm finalizing the actual firmware for it. So, but yes, every single board that produced after the ID will
Mhm.
have ability to work with that Wi-Fi plugin.
And what about the IDE one? Not that one.
ID itself, yes, ID is the first one
Okay,
actually.
okay.
Yeah, so every
Yeah,
single board from
sorry,
the
the way you worded
beginning,
it,
the
you just
ID
said
is
every
actually
board
officially
after that.
announced, right?
Okay.
right. But every board after that has it.
Including
Yes.
and after the IDE board.
Including
Gotcha,
the
gotcha.
idea, yes, that's the main, that is the main, yeah, that was the main target. Let's say
Okay.
Marty has the OLED display in it, so people will pretty much be able to use the OLED to navigate. But for example, for floppy disk images transfer back and forth, you can plug in the Wi-Fi board and transfer it to your shares, or even configure or even select images, because it's all included in the web interface there.
That is very cool. Now the ODEs, the console specific ones, when some of them you said will be able to run alongside the original CD-ROM drive, and others have to be a replacement. And of course, space is probably going to be a part of that. You're not going to be able to fit both inside a top-loading CDI. There's no extra space in there whatsoever. But for the larger consoles like Sega CD1, CDI, any of that stuff, do you think they'd be able to run them alongside the original?
Most, yes. Not every single one, but most, yes. It did include a lot of I/O, a lot of 5 volts I/O into it, and actually it's universal. It's 5 volts and 3 volts. So yes, most of them will be able to be passed through. They will actually allow you to retain the CD-ROM. I definitely will not list all of them right now, because it's in active development.
Mhm.
I have rotating schedule for myself to work on it. But yes, I do intend to eventually release as much as possible as pass through.
That is really, really cool, because it's, there's definitely an argument of why would you need the original if you had the emulation. But I mean, if you're playing on original consoles, it's because you want as much of the original experience as possible. So obviously there's going to be space and technical constraints, but I really appreciate that feature, because even if I load a disc 2 more times for the rest of my life, it's going to be fun. It's neat. You get the original. Here you go. Remember how much this sucked? Listen to that warped CD wobble in the tray. Great. All right, let's go back to the ODE. So
Yeah. Well, additional option for that would be dumping the original discs as well. That is something I'm going to be working actively to support, so that the OD will allow you to dump the original disc. Because right now, let's face it, we have a problem. None of current laptops have CD-ROM drives. Almost no
yeah.
CD-ROM drives in our DVD-ROM or Blu-rays, for that sake, anywhere else. Those are still available, but they have their own problems. And
Yeah.
namely, this is the latest from Pioneer. I don't know if you can see the
Yep.
model, but this is the latest from BD-ROM from Pioneer. While it is capable of reading 100 gig Blu-rays and PlayStation 5 Blu-rays to that, it is capable, unofficially, but it is. I cannot read, for the sake of me, I cannot read PCFX game on it. It just does not recognize it whatsoever. So,
Not only that, too, even if your drives do recognize it, some consoles, it's a very convoluted process to dump the CD correctly.
yep.
You have to follow a guide, it's multi-steps, and so just having the ability to put your original games in and press a button would be amazing. And I know what people are going to say. Oh, there's already checksum dumps where you could prove that you have the most perfect. It's not about that. It's absolutely not about that. Especially if you bought a game when you were a kid and you kept it, and it's still in good enough condition. It's not too scratched up. Like, you want that game. You want that version that you've always played. It's just it's a thing where I don't even care if I'm wrong. I just want the one that I have. I don't care if there's a better or easier way. And I think there's a lot more people out there that agree with me on that than take the time to argue about it on the forums. I think that is something that people would absolutely use.
There is another point to this. Being myself a software developer, I do feel guilt anytime I'm going into that archive.org and downloading something to test on the OG. I do go and buy, and I have like a stack of CDs that I bought for all of these consoles, just because I'm working with them and playing with them and everything. And every single game that I like, I buy, and I
Mm,
keep it. So this is just even like, the mindset. even this is ODE, even this is, yeah, people will say, you know what, it supports piracy and everything else. No, I myself, I condone piracy. I don't like pirates. I don't like the fact that it's made easy. I understand that this is abandonware, but it still doesn't change the fact that you can just go and buy the disc. I understand it's
Yeah.
bad and everything. I understand you will never even read this. Who cares? You bought it. You have it in your collection. Done. You can go and play it on digital rip from somebody else. It's
Yeah.
just that. Support your developers. That's all it
I
is. If you
can't
like the
agree
game,
with you anymore.
support developers.
If you don't support the people that you want this stuff from, how do you expect them to have more? My view on games is the exact as my view on music, in that I prefer to listen to it first or play it first, especially with retro stuff where it's super easy to get the ROMs. And if I don't like it, then no disrespect, it's not for me. But if I like it, I buy it. And new or old, some exceptions. I'm never spending $15,000 on a copy of Neo Turf Masters. I'm gonna just steal it. I'm fine with that. I'm okay with it. But but most other stuff I will. Support local game stores, support good online stores, and it does make a difference. And even with new games, right? I remember I got Samus Returns, and then the ROM was dumped online. So I ended up just keeping mine sealed, put it on the shelf. I definitely purchased it. I supported the devs. I love the fact that I have a sealed copy of it, but I've never opened it. I played the ROM that I downloaded, and I don't feel the slightest bit guilty about that because I paid for it. I legitimately paid for it. So
Exactly. Yeah, I'm keeping a separate warehouse, like the separate storage. Like I'm paying $300-$400 a month right now just to keep all of the games that I have. Because as I
I
say,
know that
I'm a
feeling.
developer. I know what it costs mentally and physically to develop something. And when you go and see somebody just rips it and shares it, it's heartbreaking. And I have seen, and I've been in talk, and I've been around the industry, the game industry, for quite some time. So I've been through the ups and downs, and I've seen people devastated by piracy. Even though
Yeah.
people, many say that it's just a scam and everything else, at least in game industry, I've seen people devastated. I will not say anything about the movie industry, but yes, the game industry, I did see the real results of the piracy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a shame. The movie industry and movie and TV, they got to step up their game, because I feel like nobody wants to buy the same movie 10 times. So you go to pay to see it in the theater, and then you go, do you want to buy it digitally, or do you want to wait for the disc, which comes out much later? And then you buy the disc because it's less compression, but then you find out that one of the streaming services has versions with more features, and the IMAX aspect ratio instead, and it's all they're doing is making people want to steal.
No,
Especially people that started out paying. You've bought the same movie 3 times now, and it's like, what am I doing here? Music's a little depressing, because I wish that artists got more money on YouTube and on Spotify, but at least there's something. Whereas movies are just frustrating. Stream a,
no
a highly
movies.
compressed copy, buy a disc that may or may not be what you need. It sucks.
Yes, movies. I have my own story to share, and if time allows, and you're willing to hear it, I will share it
Yeah,
later on.
I'd love to.
But
Fire
yes,
away.
yeah, okay. So the reason why I actually developed that ODE in 2003 was because I was working and actually developing anti-piracy technology for movies.
Hmm.
Namely, the back in the day, when I developed something very interesting, basically the smart card that is able to communicate with your unmodified CD-ROM drive. Basically, you can write to it and read from it on unmodified, normal, standard PC or Mac CD-ROM drive. So that enabled me to do a lot of cool tricks and everything else. Among them, I found that there is a good, interesting problem with movie previews, basically screeners. Any movie that is coming out, they're sending the screeners, used to at least. I don't know what's
Yeah.
going on right now, but back then in 2003, they were sending DVD discs to the reviewers ahead of a movie release, so they will review it, write comments and everything. So that the piracy market was split. About 80% was pirated from the screeners. About 20% was pirated from the bicycle of that courier that goes from the mastering to the pressing. So
Huh.
that was the 20%, like about 20. It's like I would say 19% of the piracy came from them. About 1% was the cam rips. Okay. So I developed an interesting technology or other combination of technologies that allow me to watermark video or movie stream in the way that is undetectable to the human eye but completely recognizable. So basically, it allows me to stream about 300 bytes of a data every 30 seconds. It doesn't matter if the camera is shaky. So even I demonstrated it to the point that I was taking a normal standard mini DV camera. I was filming the CRT display that was playing something that I inserted into it, and I was shaking the camera like this on purpose for 30 seconds. So there was not a normal, stable, like that couple of frames adjusted. I ran through the process and I retrieved my 300 bytes. Usually, what the demo was, I give the disk to someone. It has a little executable on it. I say, okay, go into your PC or Mac, type something in there. Don't tell me what you type. Bring me the disk. So we insert the disk into the DVD player. Start playing it. Start playing a little like demo movie and whatever it is. Taking the camcorder, shaking it in. Okay, plugging it into my Mac. And again, I'm avid Mac developer. I always use Mac for development. So I plug it into my Mac. I rip the video, process it, and give them the string back. So the movie, so all of the movie studios, and I I went with that company to every single one. You name it, I've been there. Okay, their CTOs were their jaws were hitting the floor when they seen it. Their jaws were hitting the floor. It's like, oh, this is the answer. Okay, guess how many studios bought it?
0.
Precisely.
Yeah.
A year later, after we went through the year, we did everything and everything else. Nobody buys it. A year later, I had the epiphany why it happens. Okay, so and I know I will get a lot of enemies right now if I'll say it, but I came to realize that all of this piracy, it's somewhat of insurance scam. If they got a pirated, if they get pirated movie and they prove that they pirated movie, their insurance pays off their bills essentially. So the entire budget of a movie is insured. Okay,
Huh.
it's not announced. This is my theory. Again, I will make a lot of people angry, but that's what I realized is going on behind the doors. There is no other explanation why every single CTO, every VP of engineering, VP of technology, and every studio, every single one was just okay. Give it to me now, right? Because the biggest piracy was coming from the screeners. And they can now watermark those screeners to the point that it survives even like, the camera, the cam rips, right? So obviously I can identify the theater by the watermark and everything else, right? So this is another application for it. But nobody bought it. A year go by, nobody bought it. 2 years gone by, we have a technologies, out there, like literally out there. Nobody is interested. We went bankrupt.
Hmm. That sucks. The insurance scam might absolutely be it for the courier part, because that would make sense. Obviously, they would have caught that within a couple of years, though. The insurance companies aren't that stupid. They would have caught it eventually. But a lot of things are total bureaucracy in that your idea comes in and they love it, but then they find out that the CEO's cousin works for a company that's doing a watermarking program. And, I sound like an asshole saying that, but I can't tell you how many times in my life I've sat witness to that, jaw dropped, going, I can't believe this is what's happening right now. I don't understand. There's got to be more to it. There has to be, especially when I was younger. I used to think this has got to be one of those times where when I'm older, I'll understand what's happening right now. Maybe I'm missing a bigger picture thing. Nope. Nope, there
Okay,
was no bigger picture.
so fast forward a little bit more. 2008, I already moved here, and I met some CTO, former CTO from one of the big movie studio. I met him in CES. So he remembered me, I remembered him. So we talked, we chatted, and then said, okay, now let's grab a dinner and just remember the old times together and everything else, because he was curious what's going on with technology and everything else. So we sat and I explained to him, 2 years we tried, we knocked on every door, we've been everywhere. And when I'm saying everywhere, it's just everywhere from LA to Japan. We've been everywhere, like every studio you can think about, right? So and nobody bought anything. Nobody just they don't want to or something. So and I told him this. I told him my idea that there is something going on with the insurance companies, and I will name whistleblower for that, because he actually said you are almost at exact point. So you are almost 100% correct. He didn't specify where I wasn't, where I was wrong and everything else, but he said our decision, like their decision, was
Mhm.
made because of exactly what I said. The At least he confirmed that the entire budget, the entire production budget, is insured, and one of the clause is piracy. Um, if that anything
Interesting.
to go by,
Interesting and depressing.
yeah,
Jeez. Well, let's end on a lighter note. So,
yeah.
what are delivery times looking at for HDMI and ODE kits? And is there anything else that you wanted to announce or talk about today? Obviously, you're working on so many different things, but basic status update here. We looking at summertime for everything. No, you had I know you had other later dates for other ODEs, but I mean for the HDMI
Yeah.
kit, we're looking at summer, and then what about the rest of the stuff?
Well, HDMI, as I say, they are en route to me, and I will be testing each as usual. I will be testing each and packing each. So you expect to get shipping notifications within the next couple of weeks.
Nice.
Again, I'm shipping at random. It's a little thing I did with Shopify, is that I asked them to print out the shipping labels in random, so that this way there's not going to be like oh, I first in queue, I got first, and oh, I got it I got it like 4 months later. I'll be the last one to get it. No, I want everybody to be equal, so I'm shipping them in random batches. Again, my family helps me to pack it and everything else. I'm for all the ODs. Again, that's more or less for now. It is more like a hobby project, but I completely support it, which means everything will be tested here on the bench, will be tested in the real consoles, and verified like 100% functionality, packed and shipped from here. Um, for IDE, you're looking about the same time, because I already have all of them here. I'm right now going through programming them, because that's IDE is a little bit harder to program. I need basically I need to power it, and the only way to power this is from 44 pin. That's easiest. Sorry, the easiest way to power it from 44 pin. So I'm, as a programming involved with this, I do not want to send you the boards with the connector solder in. So because there's no point. I'm sticking in programming, and then going after everything is programmed, I'm going to test all of them, and I have uh, I have a crate of old computers that I'm bringing in. Doing from the storage, yes. So I usually, at least for ID, I chose to test everything on one of the 486 computers I have, because it supports CHS and PIO and altered DMA settings. So I can test pretty much all the modes in it, and at one go. And I run a little test program. I wrote actually a little test program on DOS as well to test everything. So once that tests, and I have a scope here to with the waveform mask that basically checks. It plays the sign on the analog output, and it checks if there is any noise or anything. It will throw me the red flag if there is any noise. So everything is checked. So as I said, ideally looks about the same time shipping. So probably like in the next couple of weeks, you're going to get an email as well with the shipping notification. Between myself and my family, I'm split the roles, who is testing, who is packing, who is everything else. So I think we should be able to pump out every single order probably by end July. But every single order, like everybody who ordered it.
Wow,
Um,
that's awesome.
yeah, it's again the same thing as we experienced it with the 3DO. I mean, well, I was lucky enough to release the 3DO even earlier than planned, FZ1 at least, if you remember. The other consoles, again, I will not promise, but it looks like some of them will be released even earlier than planned because, as I said, there's stuff going on in the background. I'm rotating the schedule, and I have a days dedicated for one, for another, and everything else. What else did I want to say? Oh yeah, um, I did. Well, I did not announce it yet officially, but this will be probably the first time announcing it. I will release the sources for PCFX OD late at a later stage, so it will not be entirely closed source. It
Oh
will
wow.
be actually open source, as well as 3DOs as well. I do think that releasing sources eventually will help into long run to those consoles. I'm not sure yet about 40 or any other projects, but uh, I will make a decision at a later date about this.
I have
Um,
a pretty strong opinion that when you
yeah,
put, you meaning anybody, puts so much time into something and you're going to sell it, make some money back first and then
yeah,
eventually open
no,
source it. And,
I agree.
even if it's okay, 5 years from now, I'll open source it. I'll have something set up so GitHub automatically opens it in case I get hit by a meteor or something and I can't do it myself. That way, all of your work kind of lives on. But for
Yeah.
now, don't let the Bitfunks of the world steal it and try to undercut you by making a lower quality crap version of it. Sell the good stuff for now, make your money back, and get the info out, as time allows.
Yeah, funny you mentioned the truck being being hit by truck and everything. I do have stuff set up if something God forbid happens with me or anything else. Obviously, all my sources will be released. So I have set it up. So there are numerous peoples and there technology that's keep watching over this. So if you know if I will disappear and will be incapacitated to the point that I can support projects anymore, they will be open sourced. So this way, it's not going to be going into the obscurity. So people buy it, invest into it, and then, they cannot do anything after it. I mean, yes, the project will still work, the boards will still work and everything else, but at least this way somebody else can pick up and maybe improve the features or, add something else, maybe release it on the newer hardware and stuff like this. So
Mm,
I do have everything set up for that. At least that's, I know some people actually will feel better knowing about this.
awesome. And where can people find you? I know you're on the 3DO Discord, which is actually a pretty friendly community, mostly. And on Twitter, I see you. And but are there other places that people could find you if they want to say hi and just
Well, you can DM me on Discord. I mean, I will share my DM link. You can always email me. I'm felix.lazarev at gmail.com. It's available. I'm not refusing contacts. Or if somebody wants me, that hard, they can find me on my cell phone. I shared quite a number. I shared it with quite a number of people, and you know, I'm available for any technical support or anything. I'm available on WhatsApp, FaceTime, SMSs, whatever is convenient. So anyone who purchased it can find me there as well.
That's very nice of you. So I would not say the same thing, but that's very nice of you. So thank you very much for doing this. Thanks for your awesome products, and I would love to swing back and do this again at some point and check in maybe next year after the ODEs have been released and see what else you got on your plate.
Absolutely.